curiosity at WBZ-TV.com.
A 21-year-old Marine's death at a Quincy quarry. It's a tragic accident, not foul play. That is the word from police this noontime. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Wade.
And I'm Paula Eben. Divers recovered the body of Patrick Coughlin from Milton shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. Coughlin was a Marine. He had just finished a tour of duty in Iraq, returned in April. Eileen Curran has been following this story all morning in Quincy, and Eileen, police were saying that this was a young guy who was just going to a favorite childhood spot with some friends.
Certainly, Paula. Police say Patrick Coughlin and his friends swam in the Quincy quarry as kids. And last night they decided to relive that memory, and unfortunately, it turned tragic.
My nephew was a 21-year-old Marine who just returned from Iraq. One of the finest Americans, Marines, nephews you'll ever meet.
A family mourns the loss of a loved one in a Quincy quarry. It was just before 2 this morning when 4 young men came to the Fuller's Quarry on the grounds of the Granite Links golf course. 21-year-old Patrick Coughlin had reunited with some of his childhood friends earlier in the night. The 4 decided to head to the quarry for a swim.
This was part of an evening's plan of doing something that they had done earlier in their lives together.
Police say it appears Coughlin hit his head as he dove into the quarry.
It is treacherous, it is rocky, it's an old quarry, so there's jagged edges and there's a lot of debris in the water as well.
Coughlin's friends tried to find him and couldn't. Police used an underwater camera to locate him. The young man's family includes a number of police officers and firefighters who are used to dealing with scenes like this, but from a different perspective.
We know what the problems are and what the heartaches are, but it's tougher when you know what happens to one of your own.
Now they grieve the loss of a young man who survived a war only to die in this quarry.
He loved his country, he loved the Marines, he loved his family more than anything.
Now, police tell us there was no sign of alcohol at the scene, and they say all 4 men were of age. David?
Wow, and Eileen, we know it's a popular spot with the kids. Obviously not supposed to be there in the first place. Does the golf course, does the city do anything to keep them away?
Well, the police say, David, that they will be doing extra patrols up here, but you know, late at night, early in the morning, this happened about 2 in the morning, it's, hard to keep tabs on it. But technically, the kids were trespassing because the quarry, Fuller's Quarry, is owned by the golf course, the Granite Links golf course. So yes, technically they were trespassing.
Trying to relive some old childhood memories. Eileen Curran, live in Quincy. We thank you for that, Eileen.
And David, unfortunately, accidents at Quincy quarries are nothing new. Back in August of 1998, 19-year-old Ryan Whitney died after slipping off the rocks at Lyons Quarry and falling 50 feet into the water below. In fact, there have been more than a dozen similar deaths reported at those quarries in the last 40 years. Since then, several of the larger quarries have been drained or filled to prevent similar accidents. But despite warnings from police and the fact that trespassing is strictly prohibited, that area does remain a popular place for kids to swim. WBZ will continue to follow the story throughout the day. For updates and aerial pictures of that area, the golf course where it happened, go to WBZ-TV.com. Updates will be there on the homepage.
It looks like a microchip will not help solve the mystery of a man who may have disappeared in Hingham. Now, on Wednesday, we told you how they found this St. Bernard, police did, near a cord pond in Hingham. But his owner was nowhere to be seen, and people had just seen a man walking the dog minutes before. Well, a search of the pond and of the area has turned up nothing. The dog did have that microchip implanted in him, but the Globe reports today that the chip had no information about the owner, about any address. The pet supply store that implanted it has also gone out of business.
On this Friday, the gloomy wet weather we're seeing right now isn't going away anytime soon. Let's take a live look outside. This is Foxborough, right outside Gillette Stadium. And we know at this point rain is moving away from the city, but as meteorologist Barry Burbank joins us, we can't lose track of where our umbrella is for a while, right,
We've got
Barry?
to keep it handy, Paul. You've got to do that through the entire weekend, unfortunately.
looks like our string of nice weekends coming to an abrupt halt here, although that doesn't mean that it's going to be raining every single minute, but certainly we'd like to have it sunshiny much of the day, but it's just not going to be the case. However, the satellite imagery shows that there are breaks in a few locations, and that should be the case this weekend. If the sun pops out during tomorrow, the temperature could easily go into the 70s quickly, but it looks like there isn't going to be a substantial amount of sunshine. We're still seeing rain in here, but it's primarily focused over the coastal Massachusetts. There's a lot of drizzle, and some of it's pretty heavy drizzle here, and some heavier rain up in Essex County, up along the New Hampshire Maine coast. So it doesn't look like it's ever going to get out of there or across much of this region along the New Hampshire Maine coast, while in Boston, you can see it's really basically coming right on shore, so it's going to be feeding in there all through the afternoon. If you go into Metro West, that's where there isn't going to be all that much rain, and in times it may even stop or just be light and misty off to the west of Boston. So we're going to be into episodes of rain and drizzle throughout the weekend, with just a chance that the sun could pop out every now and then. More details on the gloomy weather, which lasts into part of next week. I'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, so don't bother buying Dad any sunglasses for Father's Day. He won't use them.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate that. In less than an hour now, Massachusetts lawmakers will have their first vote on a budget agreement. It comes with a sales tax increase at 6.25%. as well as a tax on satellite TV subscribers and an option for cities and towns to raise taxes on meals and hotels as well.
There was just a litany of bad choices that we had before us, but there were choices that we had to make. We have to balance the budget. We do it every year. Constitutionally, we're required to do so, and that's what we did.
Now, interestingly, one thing that's not in the budget agreement is the gas tax increase that Governor Patrick has been pushing for.
A crime beat reporter for the Boston Herald is now accused of attacking an elderly man. According to the Eagle Tribune, 33-year-old Orion Johnson is facing assault and battery charges for allegedly kicking an elderly emphysema patient in the chest. This reportedly stemmed from an argument at a laundromat. Orion Johnson is an amateur boxer. He faces up to 10 years in prison if convicted.
Iran's supreme leader has a warning today for protesters. The Ayatollah Khomeini saying that demonstrations against last week's election results are unacceptable. And he's also pointing a finger at the West for meddling. Charlie Tagada has more.
The most powerful man in Iran told his nation the elections were not rigged. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei threw his full backing behind President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and ruled out any hope of a new vote. He said winning by 11 million votes was proof of an absolute victory. The Ayatollah's speech came during Friday prayers after a full week of massive election protests.
This is challenging democracy and the election itself. I want all sides to put an end to this method.
He warned protesters would face a much tougher crackdown if the demonstrations continue. President Ahmadinejad, who hasn't spoken publicly since his June 12th victory, watched the Ayatollah's sermon from the front row.
Iran's Ayatollah attacked the United States and Britain, saying foreign governments stirred up anger over the disputed election. He called Britain the most treacherous of all Western powers.
We are not the only country who is speaking out. The whole of the world is speaking out.
The Iranian government has banned foreign media from covering the unrest, but video from protesters is still leaking out on the internet. Demonstrators are planning another big rally on Saturday. But after the Ayatollah's stern warning, they face a difficult choice: drop their demands for a new vote or take to the streets again in blatant defiance of the man who holds unlimited power in Iran. Charlie Daggett, CBS News, London.
Here in Boston, the big expansion plan at Boston College has received final approval, but it does come with a caveat. Mayor Menino says BC has to build a dorm first before starting work on the rest of the project. And the rest of the project includes 4 academic buildings, a recreation center, a fine arts district, and playing fields for baseball and softball.
So today is one of the days that techies had circled on their calendar, no doubt.
Very excited about the new iPhone. The 3GS is in stores here in Boston. A few hardy souls braved the rain this morning, and they were outside the Apple store on Boylston Street very early. The store opening at 7 a.m. They opened 2 hours early for the iPhone launch, but it didn't look as though they got huge crowds. The biggest change to the phone is speed. Apple says the new version launches messages, loads games, and opens attachments much faster than the original. The phone's camera is also upgraded and the battery life extended.
And you know what? If they're going to be hip and high-tech, we want to be too. One of our viewers actually tweeted us on Twitter to tell us that there were about 50 people at the Chestnut Hill Apple, so they just didn't want to stand outside when they could stand inside the mall and get their phone, I guess.
They're techies, they're smart.
There you go. Up next on WBZ News, as North Korea ups its rhetoric and threats against the United States, we'll tell you how the government is now beefing up defenses for a potential attack.
Pedro Martinez could once again be taking the mound at Fenway, but not for the Red Sox.
Pedro out there. Popped up.